A single living point guard. We're down to 0 living point guards. Well, they're alive. They're just not available. Ryan Rollins and Dame. The Bucks didn't have a point guard last night. You know, we're so used to guys being out in the NBA. It's just a fact of life. Guy or two seems to be missing every single game, especially the second night of a back-to-back. Especially older superstars. They've kind of earned their keep in the league, and they've earned the right to rest. We sometimes lose, because we're so used to guys being out. Yeah, well, if the right guys are out, if specific guys are out, they could just be without a point guard. They could be without a center, right? The roster, the team could be put in such a bind where we don't have anyone to bring the ball up the court. We don't have anyone to set picks, or we don't have anyone to, sit on the block. They didn't have a point guard available last night. I mean, it was a patchwork effort for the Bucks last night. And to get that win, and I want to spend some time talking about this win tonight, and we'll talk Packers-Bears too. Certainly the most impactful, meaningful Bucks game I've watched this year. We'll see what it turns into, right? We'll see if they can back it up. A lot of times that's a discussion that we've had with the Badgers. All right, so you held your water against Ohio State last year. What do you do with it? Well, you turn around and you lose to Indiana and you get blown up by Northwestern, right? It's how you build on an impressive game. It's how you build on a nice win. And I'm interested to see what the Bucks can do with last night, but a massive win. There's no way around it. So that's where I want to begin tonight. We're going to be joined by Justin Garcia, the Bucks Radio Network, in about a half hour. I don't think Justin's been on in a while. I don't even think we did a season preview with Justin. It's been a couple months. I don't think he's been on since the summer. You hear him on the call during home games. I heard him driving home last night with Dave Kane on the broadcast in the first quarter. And you hear him on Bucks Talk, the post game. He does some Locked on Bucks podcasting as well. So Justin, good friend of the show, going to join us in about a half hour. Mike Clemens going to join us for the final half hour. Jeff Hafley speaking with the media, Matt LaFleur earlier today. Thursday is a busy day up in Green Bay, especially coming back from a bye. A lot to learn, a lot to ask about, a lot to talk about with Packers coaches and players, especially because they were away last week. So Mike Clemens will bring us the latest in about an hour and a half. 608-321-1670, the number to call and text. The show live streams on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Let's actually see if Twitter's working today. It was not yesterday. Yeah, it looks like we're up on Twitter. I got a green light. Is it working? Yes, it's working. Awesome. It wasn't working yesterday for whatever reason. I also, for what it's worth, I have a Blue Sky. I'm posting some of the stuff there. If you're one of these people that wants off of Twitter, well, you have the option. I'm not thrilled about needing to do both. I kind of wish the world would pick one or the other, but hey, I cater to the listeners. I cater to all of you. And if you're on one or the other, well, you have both of the options. Start with the Bucks game last night, like I said. So the Bucks win in overtime. Giannis is absolutely brilliant, and not just offensively. He was everywhere on defense. He was passing the ball. He was defending on the perimeter, but then also defending underneath as a rim protector next to Brook Lopez, or in addition to Brook Lopez a lot of the night, right? He just did everything. He hit all his free throws. He was hitting the mid-ranges. He hit a huge three-point shot in overtime. I think he only took 2 3-pointers. Let me make sure I have that right. Yep, he took 2. The one in overtime that he made was at a massive moment. It wasn't a knockout punch, but it really helped the Bucks grab the game around the neck and all but put it away. So the Bucks, this big emotional game in overtime. And I think some Bucks fans or some NBA fans, it's like, oh, all right, so we're going to celebrate a win over the Pistons. Great. It's like, okay, I understand it's the Pistons. It's not like they beat the Boston Celtics. It's not like they won a playoff game, but this is part of the reason I sometimes roll my eyes at the NBA. There's a lot of reasons you can roll your eyes at the NBA, but one reason is NBA fans never really seem happy. It seems like they don't want to be happy. Like Joel Embiid came back the other night. What do we all make fun of Joel Embiid for? He never plays. He's soft, right? He's injury prone. He misses games, right? So in his first game of the season, he's out there getting back into the mix, getting back into the swing of things. And look, Joel Embiid's not my favorite player in the world, but the second he steps foot back on the court, NBA players are like, oh, fraud. Look at this guy, flop, lazy, shooting threes. It's like, okay, well, do you want him to play? Because now that he's playing, now everyone's just mocking him. The NBA sphere, whether it's the fans or the media or just the online, I guess, blogosphere, for lack of a better term, it's just like we want to mock and be cynical and be unhappy about everything. If you want to poo-poo last night's Bucks win because it was against the Pistons, all right, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. They were 3-8. They desperately needed that win. Losing that game would have been a massive gut punch. Right now, maybe not in the first quarter. The Bucks are outscored 27-24 in the first quarter. Giannis scored, I believe, 22 of the first 24 points in the first quarter. Like it felt like an uphill battle in the first quarter. It felt like, man, this is long, difficult road to victory tonight. Okay, so the first quarter, it kind of seemed unlikely. Second quarter, much of the same. And then in the third quarter, the Bucks at one point trailed by 18. And it's like, all right, white flag. We're not going to win tonight. They fight all the way back. Giannis is closing in on 50 towards the end of the game. And it felt like it was going to slip away. Right? Especially when, was it Marcus Sasser? Is his first name Marcus? He had a heater against the Bucks last year. He hits that ball. No idea what Pat Connaughton was doing on defense. Typically, and I'm no basketball coach, typically when you defend a shooter, you stand in between the shooter and the basket. Pat Connaughton's like, no, actually, I play my own style of defense. I'm going to stand behind the shooter. Great. Give up that three-pointer. The game goes to overtime, and you're like, oh, man. If the Bucks lose this game with this effort from Giannis at home, after fighting back from being down 18, the vibes will be horrendous. Pfizer Forum will be dead. Giannis will be as deflated as ever, I imagine. It just would have been a horrible outcome. And if they got ran out of the gym from the beginning, the vibes also would have sucked, but they would have sucked in a different way. To come back from 18 down and from Giannis to lead the team, if they had lost that game, it would have been an absolute nightmare. And sometimes when your team wins, the biggest accomplishment or the biggest positive is, oh God, can you imagine if they would have lost? Right? Sometimes a win is just super important because it's so much better than the alternative. I can't imagine what vibes would have been like last night in that locker room, in that building, among this fan base, had the Bucks lost that game. So to fight into the bitter end, to hold on and to win that game in a game that Giannis scored, what did he score? 58? The numbers are so outlandish. 59. I can't even remember him. 59 points, 14 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 steals, 3 blocks. Only 3 turnovers with that high of usage is pretty nuts. And oh yeah, he hit 16 of his 17 3-pointers or free throws as well. In a night where they had to have it. I think that was one of the best 5 games I've ever seen Giannis play. And I saw Justin Garcia tweet last night, and this will be the first thing I ask him about when we bring him in at 4:30. I retweeted this at Wisco Grant. It's not just the 59 points, the defensive plays, the offensive struggles around him in the first half, and the players not on the floor. This is one of the greatest games we've ever seen Giannis play. I would agree. The Pistons, it would seem, loosely, again, I'm not a brilliant basketball mind, but from a big picture perspective, it looks like the Pistons were intent last night on not letting anyone else beat them. It's like, hey, if Giannis wants to go for 50, fine. But we're not going to help off of Taurean Prince or Gary Trent Jr. or AJ Green. We're not going to help. We're going to dare Giannis to beat us because we don't think he can. He might score 50, but we think we can still win the game. I guess that's a reasonable strategy given the players around Giannis were Brook Lopez and a bunch of guys. It's not just that the Bucks were missing guys. Again, it's who they were missing and the positions and the specific types of players they were missing. You heard Doc in the intro. They didn't have a point guard available last night. But they also didn't have, I mean, aside from a point guard, Damian Lillard, who's a shot creator, Chris Middleton, who's a shot creator, Bobby Portis, for all of his warts and inefficiencies, he can create his own shot, right? They didn't have anyone really other than Giannis last night who can create off the dribble, who can get to the cup. I mean, it was Giannis and a bunch of shooters. And Detroit was pretty intent on not helping off any of those shooters. Detroit almost dared Giannis to score 60 and beat him last night. And he needed every single one of those points. And then also some unbelievable passes and some crazy blocks and some just an awe-inspiring performance from Giannis. And again, if you, as many NBA fans, want to be cynical and poo-poo it and say, oh, needed 59 in one of his 5 greatest games ever to beat the Pistons, this team is screwed. Okay, well, if that's the angle that you want to take on last night's game, fine. But then I question why you watch sports. And that's my problem with so many people who watch and follow the NBA. It's all so negative. I said this last week. If Lamar Jackson was having this season, but he was doing it in the NBA, he'd be mocked. All of his accomplishments would be downplayed. All of his accomplishments would be poo-pooed because, well, you haven't proven anything in the playoffs. But in the NFL, oh my God, look at what Lamar's doing. Look at the ways in which he's expanded his game from even previous MVP caliber seasons. Look at how this offense has evolved. Look at how the Ravens are better positioned this year. NFL coverage, it's hopeful. It's exciting. It's positive. We highlight the good things that are happening rather than looking for a way to tear down the good things that are happening. The NBA is the opposite. So Bucks fans or just basketball fans in general or sports fans in general, if you want to poo-poo what Giannis and the Bucks did last night, fine. I guess that's your prerogative. I just wouldn't want to live life that way, and that's not how I'd want to be a sports fan, but you fan your way, I'll fan mine. It's fine. I'm not going to tell you how to fan. I think last night from Giannis was the exact type of performance, A, that they needed to win, but B, that's the type of energy and approach that Giannis is going to need to bring to the Bucks for the rest of the year. And I know that's a huge cross for him to bear, but guess what? You make the big money, right? You're the guy. That's what the money's for. Especially in this era of the NBA, in this collective bargaining agreement, when big contracts to multiple players really hampers a team's ability to make trades and to sign players and to move draft picks and all these other things, right? That's why you make tens of millions of dollars a year, Giannis, is because you're going to need to bring that intensity and that drive to the building every single day. Same with Chris, same with Dame. If those three guys show up every day, to borrow a term from the great Dave Ramsey, with gazelle intensity, right? If they can bring that every single day to practice, to the facility, to the game. Now, Giannis isn't going to score 59 every night, but Giannis is going to have to have an approach and bring an energy every single day to this team this offseason, I think unlike he's ever brought before. Chris will have to do the same, and so will Dame. And if they bring that approach, I think the rest of this roster is capable. I'm not saying they're awesome, but Gary Trent Jr. and DeLon Wright and Taurean Prince are NBA veterans. I really like AJ Green. Really liked what I've seen. Bobby Portis, they got to iron out some warts in his game and his usage, but he can be a useful player for them, right? Andre Jackson Jr., I've actually really liked watching him. They've had very few players like Andre Jackson Jr. over the last couple of years who are actually younger and athletic and can really put the pedal down to the floor. Right? If Giannis and Dame and Chris lead the way with intensity and drive and focus and a certain standard of, hey, the world thinks we're done. I don't think we're done. We don't think we're done. That's not what we believe in this building. Then I think this team is good enough to be in the mix. They're not going to be favored against the Celtics. They're probably not even going to be favored against the Knicks, but look at the rest of the Eastern Conference. What other juggernauts are there? It's wide open. The Bucks can put themselves in a position to be a contender. I got a long way to go. But as I said last night, like, it starts with Giannis, Chris, and Dame. I don't even really care about Doc Rivers. I don't even really care about the rest of the roster. This season will be a gut check for Giannis and Chris. Are you okay with your contention window being done? No one would blame you. You brought a title to Milwaukee for the first time in 50 years. You'll forever be heroes. Your numbers will be retired. You're both Hall of Famers. Or do you want to be Steph Curry, who said, yeah, Kevin Durant left and people think we're done. I'm not done. And he fought and scratched and clawed his way back in 2022. And now it seems like the Warriors are poised to do it again after Clay's left. Do Giannis and Chris have that in them? That's what this season is about for me, watching them. And different application, but same spirit for Damian Lillard. Are you okay with your season and your career basically being done and basically ending as, yeah, and then he got traded to Milwaukee at the end and it never really worked? Dame's had a great career, top 75 player of all time, certainly be a Hall of Famer, set a lot of records. Are you okay with that being that? Or are you set on writing one more very important, very meaningful chapter to your career? That's the challenge of Giannis, Dame, and Chris this season. And the approach that Giannis brought last night sets the standard for everyone else in that building. Everyone else in that building. He's not going to score 59 every night. That would be ridiculous. But that's what's needed. That energy, that drive, that approach that we saw last night from Giannis, that's what's needed. Otherwise, this season is never going to get off the ground. Let's take a 3-minute break. If you have a thought on the Bucks, I'll take your call. If you have a thought on the Packers-Bears, some coaches making some comments today. Xavier McKinney throwing some shade at DJ Moore last night. I like that. That's some good spice for this rivalry game coming up on Sunday. Justin Garcia, the Bucks Radio Network, going to join us at 4:30, but I do have some time to take your texts and calls next in the meantime, if you'd like.
we don't like our record. We're starting to like it more and more with each win, right? But it tells you on the inside how close this team is and how much this team believes that we're going to be a good team. Because you don't see that effort from your veteran guys unless that belief is solid.
That's Doc Rivers. And if you roll your eyes, oh, that's Doc. Of course he's going to say that. Well, we've heard that repeatedly from Jim Ozarski, who joins Bill every week. And I played you a clip last night of Jim Ozarski basically saying, like, you don't see any division. You don't see any bad attitude. You don't see any bad vibes. In fact, the vibes are way better this year, losing so far to start the year, than they were last year when they started the year winning a lot of games under Adrian Griffin. The vibes sucked last year, not the case this year. What does that say about the team and Adrian Griffin? And, well, that's a whole bird's nest that we don't necessarily need to unravel tonight. My point is, despite their slow start and despite their bad record, the vibes are actually still pretty good with this team. We've heard that from multiple people, including Doc. But if you don't believe it coming from Doc, well, I played you audio from Jim Ozarski last night. He's shared that multiple times. Vibes are way better this year, even losing to start the year, than they were last year when they started the year winning. 608-321-1670. You have a Bucks thought or a Packers thought, whatever's on your mind. Got time to take a couple calls here before we get to Justin Garcia at 4:30. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Bon dia, Grant.
Bon dia, Cone. It's been a couple days. What's going on?
Yeah, I've been out of the country the last 2 weeks on and off. So
good for you.
Work comes first.
On business, I was going to say a worldly traveler for business you are.
Yeah. Wanted to ask, starting the show off with Bucks talk during rivalry week for the Packers. Does that tell more about the sad state of the Bucks, the lack of excitement for the Bears-Packers rivalry, the lack of excitement for Badger football, or just the consistent disrespect of Greg Gard and this Badger basketball program?
Well,
we have a huge game tomorrow night.
We do. I think it's a little bit of a combination of all those things. I also just think it's the nature of like the scheduling of the show. Like I normally just talk about what happened the night before to start the show. And we did like an hour on Badgers football and basketball last night. And we got Mike Clemens coming up to talk Packers Bears at 5:30. So I'm trying to get everything in. I also think it's, when Giannis scores 59 and probably plays one of his best games ever, you got to recognize that. But also, is there drama with Greg Gard, Cone? The expectation is there. They're meeting the expectation so far. I mean, what do you want me to say? Do you just want me to sing his praises for 2 hours? I'd actually love that, but I don't know that it'd make for great radio.
That's exactly what I want. But
okay,
I get it. I get it. It is the Wisco Sports Show, so you got to cover all the bases.
Yep.
But how are we feeling tomorrow night? I'm sorry to get you off the rails.
No, you're good. It's wide open.
Like 5.5-point dogs. We got smoked last year at Arizona. I was boots on the ground. So I'm a little hesitant to either bet on this game or get my hopes up too much.
Well, first of all, the Badgers this year will be at home, and they will have the advantage of the honoring of the Final Four teams and Bo Ryan and his family in the house. And I think that's something that we need to take into consideration. There'll be some magic in the air. At least I certainly hope, right? If there's not magic in the air tomorrow night, you're never going to get magic in the air at the Kohl's Center. I think also this is going to be a gut check moment for Steven Crowell, who got pushed around by a big Arizona team. And I think this is a chance to grow up a little bit for Nolan Winter in year 2, right? Like those two are going to have to hold their own in the paint a lot better than they did last year. And I think they'll be ready for that.
Yeah, a team from Arizona coming and experiencing the winter warning, the winter effect, whatever we want to call it.
Yeah.
That usually doesn't bode well.
Yeah, that's true. I never think, and I keep saying this, so sorry to like use the same phrase, but I just think it's the best way to describe how I feel about Nolan Winter. He's never going to be Kofi Cockburn, but can he hang in there and be good enough defensively against some of the biggest bigs in college basketball while contributing on the offensive end, which is always going to be a little bit more of his forte, even getting out on the perimeter? That's the question. And he's got a really, really tough test tomorrow night. And I'm glad that they got banged up as much as they did last year. I hope that's still in the back of their mind tomorrow night.
Yeah. Can he be a Keaton Nankivell? I think that could be a good.
I was looking for a name. I couldn't think of one. That's excellent. Thank you. That's exactly what you'd be a Mike Bruzewicz at the very least. Can he be that defensively?
Yeah, amen. But I mean, this Arizona team is good. We'll see what happens, but I'm loving the transfer Greg Gard brought in. Great start of the season. Seems like a loyal guy. He's not going to go to Kansas for $1 million and, start for 15 minutes in the game. So
yeah,
I'm looking forward to it. I think it's maybe not program defining game tomorrow, but if Greg Gard pulls this off tomorrow night, put his name in the rafters.
Well, it might not be program defining. Cone, that's a good call. Welcome back to the country. Here's how I frame it. If the Badgers get blown out by Arizona, there's a lot of Badgers fans that are just going to tune out and be like, okay, yeah, that's my hesitations with Greg Gard, my hesitations with this program are warranted. And I hope that that's not what happens, because I want everyone to be really, really excited about the potential of this team this year. And if they get steamrolled by Arizona in non-conference play for the second year in a row, I think a lot of people who want to be hesitant, they want to be haters. There's so many people that want to be Greg Gard haters. And if they get blown out tomorrow night, that'll open the door for him. And I hope that that's not what we get. Oh, and by the way, Bo Ryan going to be tomorrow night. They'll put his jersey up in the rafters, and the Final Four teams will be back. Bo Ryan on the Bill Michaels show earlier today. You can hear that interview. It was at the start of the noon hour. And they talked for, 15 minutes. And he ended the interview by basically saying, yeah, and let's hope that we beat Arizona tomorrow night. We owe him a little something after last year. It's like, yeah, even as this man gets older and grayer and gets farther away from coaching, he still wants to see the Badgers win. Okay, quick call, and then we're going to get to Justin Garcia. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
It's simple.
All right.
If the Greg Gard system hits their threes, the Badgers win. If the Greg Gard system doesn't hit their threes, the Badgers lose. Running an NBA style offense, I don't know if we're going to be able to tell much difference, night to night between the Bucks and the Badgers now.
I hate them.
It's all about can you hit the three ball.
I hate
it.
that.
That's
though.
basketball.
That's lame. But that's lame. We already do that in the NBA. I don't want to do that in college basketball too.
Well, this is what the people wanted, Grant. This is what they wanted. I think they got a good chance. Players to watch. Max Klesmit potential legacy game. That man started super cold, absolute on fire the last couple of games.
Yeah,
so,
he can Klay Thompson
a
quarter. I know they play halves in college basketball, but he can Klay Thompson a 9-minute stretch with the best of them.
Yeah, watch for the under 8 timeout. He's going to come out. He's going to hit 4 straight threes, and whatever the score is, if the Badgers were down big, it's going to get close. But am I confident in a win? Absolutely not. But you know what we appreciate, Grant?
What's that?
We appreciate the opportunity to play a big game. And that is what we're excited for this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, this certainly beats Vagabond John. I got to run. I know we'll talk probably more tomorrow about Wisconsin, Oregon, and we'll talk more Badgers soon. I just want to get to Justin without making him wait too long. But yeah, I mean, we have the opportunity to host an awesome team tomorrow. And I know that Greg Gard talked about that in his presser on Wednesday. Was it yesterday or Tuesday? Who cares? But he talked about it's a nice opportunity to play these strong opponents early on in the year. I love that. I open with the Bucks, and I also said, hey, if you have a Packers take, that's fine. And then we get 2 Greg Gard-centric calls. That's why I love the show. Let's take a 5-minute break. We'll come back. Justin Garcia, Bucks Radio Network, next.
October 31st. Let's buy that shit.
Fourth quarter, I had to be more aggressive. I had to get more downhill, get to my spots, and sometimes you got to be able to do both. Sometimes you got to sacrifice yourself for the team. Sometimes you got to be extremely aggressive for the team. Sometimes being as selfish might be a selfish thing. Sometimes your teammates want you to be aggressive.
That's Giannis last night. What do you say? Sometimes being selfish can be an unselfish thing. A good nugget of wisdom or two. The juxtaposition of Giannis post-game press conferences and Doc Rivers. Very funny. I'm kind of enjoying Doc. I know everyone rolls their eyes, but I kind of get a kick out of him. I've enjoyed, at the very least, listening to his press conferences. I'm not actively covering the team, dealing with them on a daily or nightly basis, but I get a good kick out of him. One of Giannis's finest games that I've watched, at least in a long time. We wouldn't be leading the show with Bucks Talk today with two huge Badger games this weekend and with Packers Bears. We wouldn't be leading the show with Bucks Talk. And as much as I love this next guest, and I say this lovingly, Justin, you probably wouldn't be here tonight on the show if it wasn't for what Giannis did last night. As much as I enjoy you and as one of the guests as you are, you don't take that personally, right?
No, I have not made anywhere near the appearances I have in the past on this show or others. I mean, that's the product of what was a 2-8 start. And also, out of respect to you and your audience, I did have to switch hats. I heard the conversation going into this segment and had to take off my Arizona Wildcats.
You're an Arizona fan.
Yeah.
And you've explained this to me. Was it just like you just loved Rondé Hollis Jefferson or what?
Oh, come on. I mean, I don't know how young you think I am, but no, my grandparents used to live in Arizona. They were snowbirds. And my parents and I and my brother, we'd go visit them over spring break for, I don't know, like every year for a handful of years. And when it started, I loved Charles Barkley was my all-time favorite athlete too. So we would go to Phoenix Suns games. And then the Arizona Wildcats were also pretty good. And it was the era of not really fun to watch Badgers basketball. So I just became a Wildcats fan. Went to I think 1 or 2 games in Tucson at McHale. And that was the first year was when they had Khalid Reeves and were a Final Four team and just caught on and never left me.
Many would contend that even now Wisconsin's still
well,
not that
yeah, I was trying to be careful there
to watch. I'll make the joke on my own behalf. Thank you for letting me allow me to be self-deprecating about my own team. You can't do that. Let's start with your tweet last night. It's not just the 59 points. The defensive plays, the offensive struggles around him in the first half, and the players not on the floor. This is one of the greatest games we've ever seen Giannis play. I love that. Now, I didn't really think of like where it ranks. I just love strong reaction, so I smashed the retweet button. Tell me more about that idea. And I also am curious, like, do you have a 3 or 4 game? Do you have a Mount Rushmore in your head? Because you've watched all these games up close and personal. Where does this rank about, some of the other finest moments you've seen from Giannis?
I was thinking about that as I was crafting that and like, where would this rank? But I didn't pay too much thought to it because I think there's a handful that stick out, but like, how do you really, I mean, number one has to be game 6 of the finals that you score 50 and you put up the stat line that he does and you win a championship. There's others that stand out, but the sad part is a lot of them have been losses recently. Like I think back to the first of all, what he did against the Pacers every game last year, except for the 64-point game that they won. But one that stands out to me a lot was the St. Patrick's Day game against the Sixers, where I think he had 49 and Embiid had 50, or it was reverse, and they just went back and forth. The Bucks ultimately lost that game.
I think I was at that game now that I think about it.
It was early. I think that was like 2019. It was early in Fiserv Forum. The Lakers moment in 2019 as well, where he crowned himself against LeBron. But this one, I think I'll remember this one for a while because it was not fun to be in that building for the first half last night.
Well, I listened to your radio call in the first quarter, and at one point, Dave went to you and was like, "What do you think, partner?" And you're like, "This isn't gonna cut it."
Toss it to someone else.
Yeah.
It was just like astonishing that it was all him. His teammates were 0 of 12 in the first quarter. You kept waiting, and I think we saw it early in the third quarter, but you were like, what took so long? When are they going to start trapping him and doubling him and trying to get the ball out of his hands? But he never relented. And even seeing how emotional that he got after the game, I mean, this is a guy that he clearly pours his heart and soul into this, demands the same from his teammates. We heard what he said after that Knicks game. And I don't want to make too much out of regular season games. It can be a launching point where it's, hey, that was the game that seemingly turned things around for this group. But I think the important part was he never lost trust in his teammates. And, his assists have been down the last few games. I would explain that by your teammates shooting. What they're shooting in that. The assists aren't going to be there if they're not hitting shots. And it's only natural that you're going to stop looking quite as frequently. But he didn't yesterday. I mean, I know it's easy to say, well, how can you say he didn't force things when he had 59 points? He knew what he could get, and those were the shots that he took. He put a lot of trust in his teammates. In the third quarter, we talked to Andre Jackson Jr. afterwards, and it was almost like the levee broke in that third where Gary Trent Jr. especially hit 3 straight shots, and you felt like, man, this is what this team needs to see. It's going to start going through the net and start looking for your teammates and how much that's going to open everything up. It was that. And then, I've been critical isn't the right word, but I've, kind of nitpicked some of the defense for Giannis the last couple of years. He's been incredible defensively the last 3 or so games. And last night was the highlight. Last night was the best he has looked defensively, where it reminded you of the finals and those runs where he was just taking over, whether it was the helper or the guy that was locking down and the rim protector on both ends of the floor. He was unstoppable last night.
So I've been kind of preaching that this has been my take this week. I love reacting to a game and just saying, this is what happened and this was nice. But I really love when I'm like, no, I have a take. My take this week is, with Dame and Chris and Giannis. I know Chris hasn't played yet. I've been thinking a lot about the Warriors and how when Kevin Durant left, I don't think many folks, especially with the way the pandemic kind of broke up that 5-year window right after Kevin Durant left, not even 5, let's say 2 or 3 year window. I don't think anyone would have blamed the Warriors if it would have ended there, and it kind of would have fizzled out.
We thought it did. Yeah.
We thought it did. Exactly. And that organization led by Steph and Clay and Draymond had the guts, had the cojones to say, no, we're not done, to claw their way back, to prove that they could do it again. And I think this season for Giannis and Chris, when he's back, is a little bit of a gut check that's similar to that. And I think the way they carry themselves, if they prove to have that gut, and if they prove to have that heart, I think it'll rub off enough on the rest of the roster where this team can be good enough. And I don't think that it's done yet, but I think they have to make an active decision, kind of like the Warriors did. It's like, no, we're not done, even though it would be easy for us to be done. Do you kind of get what I'm saying?
I get, I think it's probably more apt next year when we know change is coming, regardless of what happens this year. I mean, Brooke is in a walk year. Bobby Portis and Giannis both have player option, or Bobby Portis and Chris both have player options. Pat Connaughton does as well. So you get the sense, even if you win the title and everything turns around magically and goes your way, it's going to be a different team next year. And you look at what the Warriors did this past offseason, where it was the tough decision of, got to let Klay Thompson go, and we're going to use that money to find all these other guys, DeAnthony Melton, Buddy Hield, that makes sense, and round out our team. I think that comparison is going to be very interesting to monitor next year. But I get the point in that this is the last stand. I think we kind of had some of those discussions last year, but this is it, where, for the age and the contract structure of this team, this is the last year that this group is going to be together. Not to say Giannis and Chris or Giannis and Dame, but everyone else involved. And maybe it's naivete, I still choose to believe in the group when they have everyone out there because we haven't seen it for 3 years.
Yeah.
And it would really be something if this was the year where they kind of limp to like a 6 seed or something, but all of those guys are healthy in the playoffs and you finally get a chance to see what John Horst envisioned when he put this group together. I was talking with well, I probably shouldn't name in case the editor is upset, but I was talking with one of the local beat guys yesterday, and he was telling me, yeah, my editor was already kind of putting the pressure on of like, we got to start to get ready for the undoing of the Bucks and what's wrong with the Bucks and those types of articles. And he pitched it as, I mean, what happens if this team is 15-15? Like, we got to be ready to fire off these articles. And he paused and had to tell his editor, if they're 15-15,
that should be great.
Things are headed in the right direction.
That
means they've gone 13-7 since.
Yeah. Well, isn't that a nice bit of commentary on upper management in certain companies and certain industries? But no, I completely get what you're saying. We just haven't seen it. And also, like, look around the East. The Celtics are a wagon, and I think the Knicks have a super high floor. I don't know how high their ceiling is, but they're such a sturdy team where I think they're going to be in the mix.
I think it's the opposite. I look at the Knicks, the Sixers, the Timberwolves, and I mean, you can make a case there is more talent in Philly than the comparison I'm about to make, but it's pretty easy to also see a massive disruptive change that you had so close to the season and say, guys, it's not an overnight thing where you flip the switch and you dramatically change how much you play. Sixers too. I mean, when you're not just sprinkling in role players around Joel Embiid, you reshifted the whole roster on the fly. Like, this is not an overnight thing. It's not to say that they can't figure it out sooner than it took the Bucks to or continue to. But that was always my main hesitation coming into the season with the Knicks is not only the depth that really isn't there, but also you just went from a defensive team to an offensive team. And we did the same thing. The Bucks did the same thing last year, and look how that went.
I don't know that the audience of the show is super concerned about this, but since you went there, I don't think we've talked about this. I'm really interested. So NBA fans, don't say that I've never done anything for you on the show. Why did the Wolves make that trade? Let's talk about the Karl-Anthony Towns. 2 or 3 minutes.
Save money.
That's
so it. I think so, and I get it. You have to build around Anthony Edwards.
Sure.
I think Rudy Gobert he was coming up on the player option.
They extended him, right?
They extended him, but you're going to have to pay Naz Reid this summer. Naz Reid's a better fit.
Just pay him? Or he just opted in? He decided to come back. Okay, so he needs
Naz Reid's a better fit around Anthony Edwards and where the league is headed. Like, Karl-Anthony Towns is incredibly talented, very good offensive player. It worked last year because he had a very good rim protector around him. And he was pretty good defensively in the playoffs too. But Anthony Edwards is your star. It's not Cat. That's the guy that you have to build around. And I think we've started to see teams figure out, let's see what happens with Boston, because it's going to be tough to really compile those types of contracts. Like, it may be one and then a lot of B-level players that you're building out with those contracts with the second apron and the CBA stuff. So that was more of we don't think it hurts us too much, where maybe we're not a title contender up there with Oklahoma City and Denver and some other teams in the West, but we still feel good about this team. Dante, I know he struggled recently, but Dante's very good for them. Julius Randle, I would assume, gets flipped too, and they continue to get assets there. So I just took it as, I mean, the West is loaded. Maybe we have a chance, but our chance might be a couple years from now if we continue to put those pieces around Anthony Edwards and get out of this Karl-Anthony Towns money.
Randall's the part I don't get. It's like, well, why? He presents issues fitting in just like Cat did. So
I think he's fine. Yeah. I mean, I think he gets a lot of flack that's probably unwarranted, but what you just mentioned there is the big piece with this team is it just, there's no spacing with Rudy Gobert on the floor. Like, he's fine if you have 4 good defenders around him and you're playing small and he's your 5, or you have an athletic, like if you had Naz Reid playing next to him, something like that. But as long as Rudy Gobert is on the team, it's a very tough fit, which is why I assume he gets moved again at some point.
Lastly, back to the Bucks. I don't appreciate the way that this organization handles injuries. I just think fans deserve to know at least a little bit of what's going on. If we're paying
You're
to watch
talking
the
about Bobby
games.
Portis and Damian Lillard, I take
Well,
it?
no, I'm talking about Chris Middleton. No,
You're talking about Ryan Rollins, I take it?
Yes. Which, by the way, I love that Doc Rivers after the game said last night, we didn't have a living point guard available, as if the other two were dead. I get a kick out of Doc. We can talk about that later this year, but I just wish the Bucks would pay at least a little lip service to their fans when it comes to the status of Chris Middleton. That's it. Where do we stand on him?
I mean, I have to be careful with what I say,
That's
but
fine.
I think Doc has, especially the last couple of games, I think Doc has been as transparent as he can. I get the frustration, and to me, the most puzzling thing of this is this is the story I want to read in the offseason is what happened. Like, not even in the offseason. Like, I'd love to see it in maybe a week or two.
He had double ankle surgeries. I'm not
but
as to why he's out. Why is it
no? So the part that kind of confuses me is, I just, not to be a conspiracy theorist or anything, but what happened between now and then? Because you don't give the interview that Chris gave in the offseason if you know I'm not going to be ready until like mid-November, around the 20th, something like that, where he said successful season is 70 games. I expect to play around that amount, and gave those types of answers to Eric Name of, yes, I'm getting sick of being called injury prone. I'm looking to play a high volume of games. That's success to me, is to be in the high 60s or 70s. You don't give that answer if you know this is the case. And this is like, well, the plan is this. So that's the part to me that leaves me most confused. And I'm very curious to see the additional reporting that comes out.
If you had to bet your mortgage, does he play before New Year's?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. That's what I see on the internet. That's people on the internet are negative. I just had to ask. I'm asking.
Well, I mean, and look, I think we both have been pretty staunch defenders of him, and I still hesitate to call him injury prone because it's really two incidents of bad luck that have just kind of caused all of this, where the slipping on the wet spots and everything that happened there. And then you go into the offseason and you say, well, you might as well get these things cleaned up. And that took some more time off. The Kevin Durant thing. And then you suffer another ankle injury in the playoffs. So I have a hard time calling him injury prone, especially because a lot of the times the label with that, if you read between the lines, is you're lazy and you don't put in the work and you don't take care of your body.
Mm-hmm.
But at some point, it is what it is with the numbers. Like it's not your doing, but it's just the case of how many years can we have the conversation of, well, we're waiting on Chris Middleton to come back.
Justin Garcia, I appreciate your time, and I appreciate your candor on the broadcast when you don't talk for a couple of minutes and then Dave asks you what you think and you're like, I got nothing. Just keep
I'm
calling
good.
The game.
Yeah.
I enjoy the broadcast, the post-game show, and Locked On Bucks as well. Thank you for the time, Justin. Appreciate it.
All right. We'll see you.
Yeah. See you soon. The honesty to begin that interview. He goes, yeah, Justin, sorry. He probably wouldn't be here if Giannis hadn't had a career game last night. He's like, yeah, I know. I haven't been on as much. Sorry. We've had a lot to talk about with other teams. And we'll talk about the Bucks when we need to talk about the Bucks. So if that wasn't your bag, I'm sorry. The rest of the show is for you. If you like talking Bucks, if you like talking basketball, there's a lot of good information in there. So hopefully we're catering with everyone, or hopefully we're catering to everyone with tonight's show. Let's take a 3-minute break. We'll continue next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
We were struggling early, and this town they're Bucks fans, and they just stayed behind us. Like, they kept cheering. We had nothing. We had no energy, struggling without any point guard play, and they just hung in there. And I tell you, as important as Giannis's 59 was, and as important as Dre and Brooke in the second half, I thought the crowd was just as important in this game, because this was one of those games we needed a home crowd, and we had one.
I'm not trying to be hyperbolic. Last night felt a little bit like a playoff game. I think if you read in between the lines of Doc Rivers' comments, that's kind of what he's saying without saying it. Felt and sounded like a playoff game. And it's not because beating the Detroit Pistons was the most important thing in the world. Look, they were 3-8. Going to 3-9 doesn't completely cook you, but the way they battled back from, I think, 18 down, and Giannis is going for almost 60, it's like to let that game get away from you, to lose that game at home. Look, even the most optimistic of Bucks fan and even the most optimistic of player like Giannis start to look around. It's like, man, is this season just not meant to be? And luckily they held on and won. And it could be a win that propels them to something. We'll see. 608-321-1670. Got time to get a call in before we reset the show. Get into some football talk at 5 o'clock. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
This is Hector in Alaska.
Hey, Hector. What's going on?
Well, actually, Hector in La Crosse. I am heading to a poker game for my birthday.
Is it a secret illegal one somewhere? Please tell me it's secret and illegal.
It is. Yep. It's downtown La Crosse. Up on the fourth floor.
Hey, don't say where it is. Don't say where it is. You don't have to get busted.
Yeah. No. That's it. Downtown La Crosse on the fourth floor. I mean, take your pick of buildings.
I was gonna say there's some big buildings down there, but we can begin to narrow it down. We got about 2 minutes. What's on your mind?
Yeah. No. I was just. Well, you said you were switching to football talk, so
Yeah.
my point was more football related. A positive note, finally, that I can talk about that's a little bit different with the Baltimore Ravens, as some of you may know. I do bleed a different color of purple.
You do.
Than those wallowers across the Mississippi. Anyway, but the Lamar Jackson being unable to come from behind and win a game, finally did it. And he used different options. It's just nice to see the fourth receiver come off the bench and put up numbers like that. I mean, I would have liked Deontay Johnson to get some kind of work, but
yeah, it's early.
Players can't be choosers.
Is Deontay Johnson going to make a difference? Are they going to beat the Steelers on Sunday?
Well, that's two very different questions, Grant. Because
feels
I
like
do
a
think
coin
Deontay
flip.
Johnson is going to make a difference. But the Steelers are better than I thought they were going to be. So
Same.
It's going to be a good game. And my old lady is going out of town, out of state, out of country to Jamaica this weekend. So
Not
I am
taking
off
you?
on Sunday, which is very weird. So I'll be watching all the games.
Well, you get a little domestic vacation. Well, good luck at your poker game. Enjoy the weekend. What do they call it? A Viking weekend, where a man is home alone. I can't remember all what that means. I know there's bullet points to check for a proper Viking weekend, but good luck in your poker game. We'll talk more football. Maybe let's talk a little Ravens Steelers. That's a game I'm looking forward to. Hour 2 next.
This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, nearly the entire Packers roster was on the field for practice earlier today as they continue to prep for their trip to Chicago this weekend. Only defensive lineman Colby Wooden was not out there. He's dealing with a shoulder injury. The team largely healthy coming off their bye week with the way they entered the bye, coming off a sloppy loss to the Lions. Coach Matt LaFleur was wondering how the team would respond in practice. He's loved what he's seen.
I feel like the last 2 days the energy has been exactly where you want it to be. So it's never going to be perfect at practice in terms of the execution. There's a lot of install. There's some new plays. Like I talked about yesterday, we're doing a little bit more unscripted, unscouted looks. You'd like to see how the guys react, but in terms of the energy and the things that are within their control, the effort, all that, I thought it was on point.
Again, the Packers and the Bears going to meet on Sunday in Chicago. Bears have lost 3 straight. Going to have a new play caller with Thomas Brown taking over for the fired Shane Waldron. Kick on Sunday is at noon. Turning to the Badgers. They're also putting the finishing touches on their game plan for Saturday night's matchup with number 1 Oregon. It's the first time Wisconsin has played the number 1 team in 14 years. They beat Ohio State that night. Kick on Saturday, set for 6:30.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
If you're interested in a rewarding career with a strong Wisconsin company, Rural Mutual Insurance is looking to add to their growing team of successful employees and agents. Apply online today at ruralmutual.com/careers.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
Well, the Badgers going to host number 9 Arizona tomorrow night at the Kohl Center. Wildcats rolled to a 25-point win last year in Tucson. Tip tomorrow is at 8. And the Bucs back in action on Saturday night in Charlotte. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heil.
No Dane, no Chris Middleton, no Bobby Portis, no Ryan. So we're down to 1 living point guard on our team. And for him to do that, every basket is needed.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
Text from Dave and Monona before we get into Packers Bears. Dave says, regarding our guest at 4:30, Justin Garcia, he is by far the dullest, most boring individual doing color for any sport in Badger history. I mean, he does the Bucks games, but I get what you're saying, Dave. Just once, show some excitement not being at funeral. I'm sure nobody will tell him that, but somebody should. His level of excitement is like watching paint dry. It's hard to listen to Dave in the broadcast when he's on there. So you've said this to Justin before, Dave, directly. I remember you being in a Twitter space 2 winters ago when Justin joined, and you're like, yeah, you're boring as hell, dude. You're dull. And Justin's like, thanks. Appreciate it. And then you're like, oh, no. I just, somebody's got to tell you. Somebody needs to tell you. I'll tell you. It's my Dave from Monona impression. Justin is dry. And I don't mean that in a negative way. He's very businesslike. And that's how Justin is as a person, too, which is why I really love when I can get him to crack a little bit. There's multiple approaches to being a color commentator. There's facts guy, and that's what Justin is. And then there's what a lot of NFL color guys are on radio. And it squeezes my grapes a little bit to hear Larry McCarron, who I've never met and everyone seems to love. I don't have a problem with Larry. But the other side of the spectrum, Dave, is the color guy who's like yelling and stomping all over the play-by-play guy, right? There's such a thing as being too excited. You think Justin's not exciting enough. I think there are lots of color guys who just, they turn it into their own little cheerleading section. And I think some cheerleading is good. There is such a thing as too much. And I think a lot of radio people go too far the other way. I like Justin's commentary a lot because you're getting good facts. I don't need a color guy, at least on radio, to be like, I can't think of a pun. I didn't go to Syracuse, but like, I don't need the puns and the plays on words and the Giannis goes up and in, call that a Greek delivery. I don't know. Okay. Again, it's not my job. I don't need that. I would rather get the information, especially when I'm listening on the radio, because if I'm listening to the Bucks game on the radio on my drive home, it's because I want to know what's going on. It's because I'm very interested and I'm focused. If you listen to a Packer game on the radio, hey, we're coming home from church, we're coming home from the store, and I want to make sure that when I get into the house and I turn the TV on, I know what's going on. Like I was listening to the first half of the Bucks game on my drive home last night. I want the facts. Justin, give it to me. I don't need the puns and I don't need the references to movies and song lyrics. I don't need that. I don't need that. So I will defend Justin. Dave, I get what you're saying, but also like the other side of the spectrum is I don't like that either. Johnny Driftless says talk to text from Dave from Monona. Yeah, I do always love how his texts are very clearly yelled into his phone and his tweets too. And to Dave's credit, he's got to be the most tech savvy blind person on planet Earth. I can't imagine anyone else engaging with sports radio on the text line, on the phone, and on Twitter at the level that he does. He's got to be one of one. 608-321-1670 as we get into Packers Bears talk. Mike Clemens going to be here in about a half hour. Let's take a call first. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, it's Darnell.
Hey, Darnell. What's going on? I thought that maybe this would be Dave, and I'm like, I don't really need Dave right now. We kind of just gave him a couple minutes worth of run. We don't also need the call, so I'm glad it's you.
No, you had just mentioned the color guys sometimes stealing the show. Do you feel that way about Tony Romo?
Sometimes. I think when Tony picks his spots, he's awesome. And when it's a high-level game, I think Tony, less is more. Because a little touch of fun and zany is great. The problem is like when the Bengals and the Chiefs are playing and it's the fourth quarter of a massive playoff game, I don't need that. You know what I mean? Like a little goes a long way. Sometimes you got to let the game breathe. I think Romo, for the most part, is pretty good. I like most announcers. I'm not the guy that rips on announcers.
Gotcha. I actually really like Tony Romo just because of the cerebral part he brings to it. You don't really hear that all that often. And even, I mean, I know Tom Brady's still earning his stripes a little bit, but you don't really get that kind of that level of understanding of the game of football from anybody else. I just wish that Tony Romo in the Super Bowl on a game-winning touchdown pass to win the Super Bowl, I wish he would have just shut up and let the moment kind of sit, instead of like, well, look here, he went from this way to this way.
No, that's what you do 2 minutes after we've watched the confetti, after Nance has kind of delivered his thing. Then we go back and break it down. I don't need that in real time. Yeah. And that's an example of like less is more. We can nitpick broadcasters. It's a fun thing for sports fan to do. I mostly think they're all good. I've enjoyed Tom Brady. I saw Schneidman tweeting the other day that, Packers Bears going to have Brady and Burkhardt this weekend. And everyone's like, oh God, I got to watch on mute. It's like, what do we got against Brady? Is it because he criticized Jordan Love for throwing one of the most dopey picks I've ever seen a couple weeks ago? Like, he's fine. They're all fine.
I mean, I used to be one of the people that was like, oh my God, we have to listen to Joe Buck and Troy Aikman again on Fox.
Same. And then we grew up and then we got girlfriends or we got married and we became functioning adults and we just became able to watch a game without losing our mind over every word that the announcers said.
But now I look back and I'm like, oh man, I really enjoyed Troy and Joe.
Yes.
Like, they're a great team, and people that don't think that, what are you watching? Who's better? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just, I don't know. And then on top of that, I will say, you kind of threw a little shade at Wayne and Larry. They are also like one of one and fantastic radio guys. And I think that Larry breaks in with like perfect stuff, like the yes and stuff. Yes, I love it. I love when he comes in. He's just like, oh my gosh, what's happening? I'm like, I don't know. You're watching. I'm listening, dude.
Maybe I'm putting the me in media here as a broadcaster myself, Darnell. Maybe I just get a little shut up. Maybe I get a little prickly at the thought of, well, if I was making the call, I would not like the guy, crying. Look, I like Wayne and Larry too, and I shouldn't even brought it up. I was just presenting the other side. Like, Dave probably also bitches about Larry McCarron stepping all over Wayne Larrabee's calls. Dave is a miserable man with his takes. We've all heard his calls, but
fair enough.
No shade on Wayne and Larry. I love them both. I love the call, but that's the other side of the spectrum, right? There's such a thing as a lot of emotion. Sometimes the call then gets a little chaotic. That's all I'm saying.
And I will say, in a little parting statement here, that game from Giannis last night was probably behind the 50 piece to win the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite game that I've ever watched him play. So, it was insane. And people can say, oh, well, it's against Detroit. It was against Detroit. And guess what? They're ahead of us in the standings right now.
Yeah.
So it was a big game.
Thank you, Darnell. NBA people, we always want to take a big fat dump over anything cool. It's like you know what? NBA fans can never just be happy about anything. We always got to needle and poke. Oh, Joel Embiid is back. Well, let's take a dump on every single thing he tries to do tonight. It's like, okay, well, so we were dumping on him for not playing, and now that he's back, and I'm not a Joel Embiid fan. I don't like him. I think he's childish. I think he threw an elbow into Giannis's ribcage, one of the dirtiest plays I've ever seen. It's like, well, Embiid, he likes hot dogs. And remember when he was at Kansas? It's all that stuff. I don't like Embiid, but can we just be fair? Can we be honest in our commentary and in our coverage? That's all I ask. My favorite Giannis games off the dome, the game in the finals, obviously. Justin mentioned it, that game against the Sixers. I was there. I forgot that was Giannis. I think that was his first 50-point game. I was there with my dad and my brother in 2019. 2018, 2019. It was early Fiserv, as Justin said. One of my sneaky favorite, I can't remember what year it was. Maybe it was 2017. Either 2017 or 2018, probably, but no earlier than 17. That early season game against the Blazers might have still been at the Bradley Center at the time. Might have been late stage Bradley Center, or maybe the first year of Fiserv, when Giannis he blocked a game either while they were trailing or while it was tied. He blocked a shot and then took it coast to coast and took the lead with the layup. Or maybe he had the layup and then the block, but the sequence, Paschke and Johnson were just nails on the call. And I love that moment because that kind of felt like the first moment where it was like, okay, this guy is next level. This isn't just a spunky, young, fun player anymore. Like, there's something else going on here. And I'm going to look up exactly what that game was. I'll try to get the call because it'll give you goosebumps. That's one of my favorite Giannis games, as long as we're just, throwing out our favorite Giannis games. I have a comment that Jeff Halfley made about Xavier McKinney earlier today that I want to play for you. But first, I want to take one call, 608-321-1670. This is the last caller on hold. So we're going to take this call, and then we're going to let the phones quiet down for a while. Let's go Sports Show. Who's this?
Oh, I just had a call in. You must have read my comment, and all my takes are bad. And
No.
You're talking about Justin Garcia, huh?
You have negative takes. I didn't say they were wrong. I didn't say they were all wrong. I think some of them are. You just tend to be very cynical with your takes. That was my point, Dave.
Justin Garcia is god awful.
No.
Yes.
I
want you someday to close your eyes and just listen to him and Dave. And then after you close your eyes, put a blindfold on. The voice never changes. He brings no value. There's no excitement.
To say he brings no value is false. It's a lot of very good information and analysis. Maybe he doesn't deliver it with the zest. Well, who cares? What do you mean? Who cares? What do you mean? Who cares?
Giannis had 35 points today, and what? No, you want your radio guys to create an image, and when the action on the floor is going good, you want your two people on the radio, like Brian Butch is phenomenal. Wayne Laramie is phenomenal.
Butch and LePay friggin' rule. Yes, I love listening to Butch on game broadcasts.
close your eyes, don't watch the game, and just listen to Brian Butch.
But Butch does by and large the same thing that Justin does. He provides. Listen. Let me finish. Let me finish. He provides information. He's in and out. That cadence is good. Butch might give it a little more gusto, but Justin gives so much good information. I don't need it's not 1960. I don't need my radio announcer hitting me with puns and fun expressions. And I don't need that.
Not even close. Justin Garcia, if you hear one comment a quarter, Butch has got the enthusiasm in his voice.
Yeah.
You can feel the intensity. You can feel like Mark tells you. You can feel the intensity. The next play's coming up. Here's what's going on. That guy in the post. Justin shows no emotion. I know we're going to differ, but I've listened to thousands of broadcasters.
You do.
And he's just, I guess a little different, but we're spoiled in Wisconsin with colored people.
We hear a lot of good ones. Justin doesn't talk as often as other. If he doesn't have anything to say, he won't say anything. You're not wrong about that. He is more minimalist than Butch or Tauscher.
If he would just tweak his voice inflection and show a little more excitement when he's giving his stats or when the game's on the line or something on the court, if he just showed a little more emotion, he might get better. But I know we're spoiled. It's just unfortunate. We got one of your buddies that doesn't belong. He brings Dave down. I mean, Dave's gotten a lot better this year. Dave's gotten a lot better as far as it's tough, man, when you're a one-man show. Of course, you're a one-man show too.
Well, yeah, he's got to be a one-man show because Justin doesn't travel too. Justin does home games, but on the away games, it's just Dave. So it's not like they do every single game together.
You ever hear Ted Davis?
Yeah. Yes.
Ted Davis. I mean, for a one-man show, and then I can't remember who he had sitting with him. I mean, that guy brought intense. Wayne and Laramie. They're a couple of boobs who miss a lot in the field, but man, their intensity and how they hate the officials.
Well, it's a more intense sport. Football's more. Part of that is just structural to the game, right? I can't believe we're still talking about
basketball. Yeah, I mean, Butchie and Lucas was okay, but Lucas tended to have a tendency to go dark and wouldn't really show any excitement. But anyway, now I just turned you on. I heard that little comment. No, we're not even close.
You think Wisconsin's going to beat Arizona tomorrow night? Before I let you go.
Yeah, believe it or not, it's Bo Ryan. Now you see how he has negative things to say. That guy will go down as the classiest coach of my lifetime. Of all sports.
I put him on with Bill today. I called. He picked up the phone. He goes, "Hello." Yep. I said, "Hello, Coach Ryan. It's Grant with the Bill Michaels Show. How are you today?" And he goes, "Going good." And I said, "Well, sir, thank you so much for doing this. We're excited for tomorrow night. I'm going to patch through to Bill." I called him sir and coach in a matter of 20 seconds. He is not my coach.
Bo Ryan, goes back way back to when he would, if anybody came up to him and was at an event, was talking to him, his eyes never left you. It didn't matter if he had 30 people behind him. Bo and Howard Moore was the same way. They would sit there and talk as if you were the only most important person there. And he just, and what he did for cancer. But yeah, Bo Ryan was like, I mean, that was a class act.
Are you going tomorrow night? Are you going tomorrow night to the game?
I don't go to the games anymore because I can't get up there in a wheelchair. But I'll have it on then, and then have the fight on, the Tyson fight.
You're going to watch the Tyson fight tomorrow night?
Oh, Tyson's my man. He's my generation.
Yeah, I know.
First round knockout. I was trying to find some odds. We had him like plus 1,000 something to knock him out in the first round. I threw $10 on it.
I can't. Dave, I got to go, by the way. Thank you. Actually, I enjoyed that call. Man, if Tyson takes a dive or if this becomes very clearly a money thing, I'll just be disappointed. It's like, Mike, maybe you need the money, but man, you're a freaking legend. Like, I don't know, do this country a favor. And was it Jake Paul or the other one? There's Jake Paul and because there's brothers, right? I obviously am out of it. By the way, the streaming game is out of control. If I have to go on Twitter one more time and it's like Aiden Ross did what on stream? It's like Jesus is needing to come back and smite all of us and kill everyone. That's how it makes me feel. I can't. So I don't know. I know the Paul's streaming stuff, but I would love to see Mike Tyson just knock him out first round. I'm with you, Dave. Maybe we can share the profits. We can go for a sandwich or something. Let's take a break. Packers-Bears coming up. We'll talk with Mike Clemens at 5:35. And I have a cut from Jeff Hafley coming up that I really want to play for you, talking about Xavier McKinney. It's pretty cool.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
It's the Wisco Sports Show. Mike Clemens going to join us in about 10 minutes. Look forward to talking with him. We have a lot to talk about. Packers-Bears on Sunday. There's been some smack talk exchange. Xavier McKinney laying it down yesterday. DJ Moore didn't really fire back today. Mostly piped down. I kind of think Xavier McKinney was right. He's got some stones to say it, but I think he was right. It's like, oh, so you guys hated your offensive coordinator? Okay. So you quit on him, but then you also quit on your rookie quarterback too. Which, by the way, on Monday and Tuesday when we first talked about Shane Waldron being fired and what problems that might fix or in what ways the Bears might improve with the new offensive coordinator, the first thing I said was, well, are the wide receivers going to start trying? Because if so, they'll instantly get better. Because I've watched the Bears the last couple of weeks. DJ Moore is out to lunch. Keenan Allen, I'm not quite sure. He might just be older. I don't know. Roma Dunze's been pretty good, but they haven't been able to get him the ball because they can't protect. And it's just been a mess. But if the wide receivers start trying again, that could present some, let's say, challenges for the Packers this weekend that maybe they wouldn't have seen if Shane Waldron was still there, which is kind of lame, and I kind of agree with Xavier McKinney. By the way, Jeff Hafley asked about Xavier McKinney today, and I believe it was off a Matt Schneidman question. He said, hey, what makes Xavier McKinney such a great player and such a good add to the Packers? It's about a minute long. This is his answer.
Really competitive. Just his study habits, right? So last night I get a text from him, probably 6:30. It says, hey, are you done with the third down plan yet? Can you send it to me? Right? And you send it to him. And then this morning he comes in before anybody else and he wants to sit down to me and he wants me to go over it with him. Right? Then he goes over it with RD and the DBs, and he does it in the walkthrough, he does it on the field because he wants to get it right away. And he gets angry when he doesn't, because that's what the great ones do. And he holds himself to such a high standard where he doesn't want to make mistakes. And it shows. I mean, that's what you're really good players. Every play matters, just like it does to us. So I think that's the biggest kind of look in I can give you to what he is like. He's always wanting to be on top of his stuff, the details, the execution, the competitor. I mean, that's who he is, and that's why he's a really good player.
I am reminded of a conversation that we had with Sam Brookhouse, Sumer Sports, a couple of weeks ago. And I asked him something along the lines of, this Packers team isn't really getting pressure at an above average rate. I think at the time they were like 9th in pressure percentage. Like they just weren't, or not 9th, 19th. They weren't getting pressure on a quarterback. They're still not really getting pressure on a quarterback at a high rate, but this was about a month ago. I said, how are they forcing so many turnovers despite getting very limited pressure on the quarterback? And he said, look, a guy like Jeff Hafley can preach turnovers, and they can have special meetings, and they can say all the right things, but at the end of the day, you need players that force turnovers. And Xavier McKinney is one of those guys. And I think at the safety position, especially, so much of the game is won before the game. So many of the plays are made before the game. A wise general once said, the battle is lost before the battle ever even starts, right? My favorite expression is, if you give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, I'm going to spend the first 5 hours sharpening my axe, right? For Xavier McKinney to study and learn and prepare in a way where those 2 or 3 times throughout the game he has an opportunity to make a play, he's ready to make that play. That's work. That's groundwork that's laid before the game ever even starts. So I'm not surprised at all to hear Jeff Hafley talk about him that way. I think that's the type of player a safety needs to be. You need to be really gifted and athletic and instinctual and all of those things, but you also need to do your homework before the game ever starts. An edge rusher or a corner, yeah, there might be some more groundwork that's done, but for the most part, you're going one-on-one against an opponent, and it's a battle of will or it's a battle of skill. I didn't mean for that to rhyme, but it did. At safety, you're reading the field like a chessboard, and you need to know the types of things the offense is going to try to do and the types of throws that a quarterback's going to try to make. We can't talk about Xavier McKinney without me thinking, how did the Giants let this guy go? We talked about this with Mike about a month ago, and I don't remember if we listened to a clip of Jeff Hafley talking about Xavier McKinney like this one, or if we listened to clips of Xavier McKinney specifically. I just don't understand how the Giants keep letting these guys go. It's like, so we're building around Daniel Jones, but 2 guys we don't need, Saquon Barkley and Xavier McKinney. I don't get that, man. Just what an ass franchise, for lack of a better term. A guy with these study habits and this playmaking ability. And look, it's not like he was Adrian Amos. Adrian Amos was older, I thought, when the Packers signed him. Xavier McKinney's like 26, isn't he? I want to look it up just to make sure. I think he's 26. It's not like he's on the wrong side of 30. He's 29 or 25, excuse me. He's younger than me. He was born in 1999. So it wasn't a contract thing. It wasn't this guy's about to be over the hump thing. He's coming into his prime. Man, weird situation. Let's take a call before we get to Mike Clemens. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Wisco Chad Frager.
Hey, Chad, over in Sun Prairie. What's going on, Chad?
Hey, I'm actually in Sun Prairie.
Well, isn't that where you live? I thought that's where you always were.
Yeah, I'm transient, right? I'm here, I'm there, I'm everywhere.
Sure.
Right.
Sure. Whatever you say. Yeah. What's on your mind?
Something like, you bring up a good point. Like, how do they let these guys go? Well, the Packers did exactly get him on the cheap for any means. Like, they paid enough for him, but his productivity is just amazing. So
yeah, but it's not like the Giants were bidding against the Packers on a player on the free market. They had him in their building, Chad. They had the inside track at retaining this guy. They knew more about him than anybody.
how quickly forget? Does anyone remember back when we signed both of the Smiths? Like linebacker you and your linebacker all world, and the Ravens had Za'Darius. They let him go.
Yeah, but the Raven, they let him go because they have a surplus of good players and they believe in their system of developing players at that spot. That made sense. The Giants don't have dick, respectfully, to that organization. And they're like, no, this guy, we don't want to keep him. That's the exact type of player the Giants should want to keep. And by the way, I misspoke. Adrian Amos was 26 when the Packers signed him in 2019. So he was a year older, but I thought he was significantly older.
But, I mean, he fell off a cliff significantly faster than we hope Xavier McKinney will. But, I mean, it's amazing to think of how terrible a franchise they are. It's just aren't the Rooneys and the Maras related between Pittsburgh and New York? Like, talk about a tale of two cities. They can't figure it out in New York. In Pittsburgh, they seemingly they went for a little rough patch here, but they're getting it right. Yeah, I don't know if I'm still talking to you, Grant, but
no, you are. I'm listening. I don't know if there's a relationship between those two. I'm not sure. Chad, I appreciate the call. That's some good safety commentary. And you're right. Look, the Packers paid a ton of money for him. We always, we like to sing the praises of our favorite organizations. Like, well, he wanted to come to Green Bay because of the history and because of the winning tradition. And look, that helped. But they cut him a check for like $70 million. But the thing is, the Giants could have extended him a year before he ever reached free agency. Right? That's the exact type of player you want to extend early and keep in the building. I don't get it. Whatever. Why do we care what the Giants do or don't do? I guess it's just something that sticks in my brain. It doesn't make any sense and it bothers me. Let's take a couple minutes break. We'll come back with Mike Clemens with some sights and sounds, but he'll paint a picture of some of the sights. Green Bay Packers back at practice today and all the coordinators and players speaking. We'll talk Packers with Mike next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Players always talk about, getting into that rhythm of the week so they're 100% on Sunday. And as a coach, when you're coming off a bye, are there things that you look for during the week of practice to make sure that, they're back into that rhythm like
Today was outstanding. I feel like the last 2 days the energy has been exactly where you want it to be.
I know what we're all thinking. We're thinking, wow, what an outstanding and pertinent question as the Packers come back from the bye week. I agree. What an outstanding question and an energy-filled answer from Matt LaFleur that I really like to hear. That question asked by Mike Clemens, who joins us now on the phone. Mike, I almost feel a little bit bad to some of our listeners because it's Bears week, and we haven't really touched on the Packers yet. We've been talking a lot of Bucs so far tonight.
Well, that's okay. Last night's game was exciting. As a matter of fact, today there was a moment there, and Jordan Love, after practice, was at his locker, and I said, "Did you see the game?" He said, "I watched some of it, but it went in. It got late, and it's past my bedtime." I said, "Did you see at the end of the game? There's like 1 second left." And I thought that, what do they call it now? The FanDuel network used to be Bally's.
Yes.
The crew, the TV crew, it was basically still the Fox Sports crew. They did this tremendous job where they show this timeout, and Giannis and the Bucs players around Doc Rivers and the coaches, and there's an assistant to an assistant who's holding out a laptop, and the camera guy from up in the rafters zooms in over his shoulder, and he's playing it. What they said is, the Pistons now are going to get the ball. They're going to get to inbound with 1 second. And this guy remembered that the Pistons had the exact same situation in the exact same location of the basketball court from their game the night before. I think it was against the Heat or something.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, hey, be aware they may set up this way. And son of a gun, the Pistons ran the exact same damn thing. But this time, the Bucs were able to stop it. It's just, I just thought it was a great job by the TV crew to catch that part of the story and to see that this assistant said, "Oh, wait a minute, that happened last night," and he could call up that video from the Pistons game the night before, show those guys those clip, and say they may throw this at you, and I'm sure the coaches appreciate that too. And then Love reminded me, we can't do that, in the NFL. We just get stills. It's not like in a game and some assistant to an assistant says, "Oh, wait a minute. The Bears might do this in this situation." It's not like you can call up a clip from the Patriots game or something. You can only go by the current video stills, the Polaroids as they used to be, of the current game that you're playing. But going into this game against the Bears and coming out of the bye week, to me, Grant, the biggest concern is, does an NFL team come out a little bit flat? After they've been to Cabo for 4 or 5 days or so.
Flat or rusty, right? There's lots of different paths that a team could take after a break. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
I mean, and it's great that some of the bruises have healed a little bit, that maybe your body feels a little bit better by Wednesday or Thursday than it does, week 10, where basically you're waiting for Saturday or Sunday the adrenaline to kick in, that the body clock to go off, and that you feel like you're ready to go out there and, smash heads for 65, 70 plays again. But there's just always a little something, when football players are on that body clock, that rhythm. So they go through Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Now it's game day and it's go time. And if they got to wait till Sunday night, they're antsy because it's like, they're like horses in the, in the starting block. They're waiting and waiting and waiting and ready to go. And then they miss that game, and the whole clock is off. And so I asked LaFleur, what have the practices been this week coming back from the bye?
It's never going to be perfect at practice in terms of the execution. There's a lot of install. There's some new plays. Like I talked about yesterday, we're doing a little bit more unscripted, unscouted looks. You'd like to see how the guys react, but in terms of the energy and the things that are within their control, the effort, all that, I thought it was on point.
Well, and it's funny, we were about halfway through that clip. I'm like, okay, I know what I want to say. And then Matt LaFleur said what I was going to say. And that's, look, if the players were a little bit rusty because they haven't had a football in their hand or they haven't been running drills in a week, that's fine. But if the energy and the attitude is right, then, I think those fundamentals and those football things fall back into place pretty quickly. Right, Mike?
And remember that the coaches, what did they do? They had 3 or 4 days off away from the players. And what do? They drop 20 new plays.
Yeah.
They come up with a bunch of new angles and wrinkles and stuff. Hey, here's some fresh stuff. Well, now you got to get that stuff swallowed and work through it and execute it to perfection by, well, if not Wednesday, Thursday's practice to have it down, because it better be 100% on Friday when they start doing that, working on the red zone. One story that's emerging today is LaFleur changing things up. And, he does this about every time of year because it's getting earlier here. It gets darker. And instead of having later afternoon practices outdoors, he started it about an hour earlier today. We were out there at 11:30 today before they excused us around noon. It went a little bit longer, but he calls it good on good. So instead of what most teams do at both, even down to high school, at this time of the year, it's like, okay, here's carded. Here's what the opponent's going to look like on a card.
Sure.
Everybody, they hold up a card, see what it looks like. And then there's a script, the coordinator, the offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator say, hey, I'm going to run this play, so why don't you run this defense? They go back and forth because they want to look at things. And LaFleur calls it good on good. Like, hey, let's have a game out here. Let's just make it up.
Sure.
Let's just roll. And so Jeff Hafley, the defense coordinator, says he loves this. He loves these good on good periods, unscripted scrimmage, instead of a prepared list of plays and cards.
You know how you get better at football? You practice football against good players. So today it's our defense, and I think we had 10 third down reps, our ones versus our ones. So we get 10 good reps against Jordan Love and our wide receivers and our O-line. I mean, that's arguably one of the best, most explosive offenses in the NFL. So we just got those 10 reps today rather than doing a walkthrough or some 3/4 speed. So our guys got better today. And there was some shots both ways, right? You're not going to win every single one, but that's what you want. And I hope we continue to do that.
Well, and as a defensive player or as a defensive coordinator, Mike, doing drills that aren't competitive can get a little stale. Because on offense, if you're running drills, even if you're running, believe they call them routes on air, is it the trendy thing? You still get to throw the pigskin around, right? There's still an engaging nature to a drill like that, even if you're not going against the defense. If a defense isn't facing anybody, it could be pretty boring. That could get stale, and I could see why that maybe wouldn't lead to the most productive practice possible, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and if you're, Carrington Valentine, a second-year corner, and now you're lining up against, Christian Watson, it's not like you're breaking huddle and you just looked at a card and here's what your coverage is going to be, and you've got to go by your instincts now. You've got to go by the rules. Like, okay, if this guy's got that guy, then I got this guy, then I've got this head leverage here. You've got to get in it. It's literally like getting your head into the game. And so I think that's an interesting twist that LaFleur's throwing in. It's really something that Pete Carroll did at the peak of his career 10 years ago with the Legion of Boom defense back in the day in Seattle. Everything that he did every day They kept sort of a score, offense, defense, who's scoring, and that's when that Seahawks team was really good. And so with the Bears firing their offensive coordinator just 10 games into his time in Chicago.
What are you laughing at, Mike? Come on.
It's so Chicago,
Well,
man.
it is, but we're professional sportscasters and journalists here. Let's keep
I listened to some of those guys on the score the other day, and down in Chicago.
Oh, Bernstein was incredible. Some of the rants that I heard from Bernstein, I played one on Bill's show earlier. I'll pull it up here, but yeah, it was incredible.
And the Bears have lost 10 games in a row to the Packers.
Yeah, and they haven't won on the road on a Sunday. That's one of the most shocking things about Eberflus's record is his road record is insane. Like they don't travel and win. They don't ever.
So I listened to Keenan Allen, their receiver, that said, so what happened? What was this Waldron guy like? Well, maybe too nice of a guy, too accountable, whatever. You know something? When they got Caleb Williams and he looked good in OTAs and minicamp and even during the preseason and all that, the excitement was so high. And then what? The HBO cameras were there, right? They were on Hard Knocks, and so they started believing the hype into themselves. And then they played some pretty good games in the first month. They were putting up 30 points a game and all that, and then they started having problems on the adversity on their offensive line. That Nate Davis, they paid that guy, the left guard, 3 years and $30 million. He shows up Sunday before the Patriots game at Soldier Field. Says, "Oh, yeah, gee, I got back stiffness." They cut him on Tuesday.
Yeah, I don't know that they believed his back stiffness. I don't know that they bought into that.
It's just like, oh my God. And all of a sudden you've got these head cases on this team and guys bailing out. So Jeff Havley said, hey, pump the brakes on this. We cannot overlook their rookie quarterback, Caleb Williams, this weekend.
There's no one here.
Oh, sorry. That's Bernstein. That was the wrong cut. I played that. Was a radio host melting down. Here's Halfley.
The quarterback's a good player. I mean, he's made a lot of plays too. You turn on some of the games like the Jacksonville game, and I thought he did a really good job. I mean, he's tough. He's taking shots. He's elusive. He can throw the ball down the field. I've seen times when he's come across the board and hit the backside read, and he's got good wide receivers, and they have a really good running back, and they're 4-1 at home. So, I mean, this is a team a couple of weeks ago, everybody was talking about winning the division or being right in the thick of things in the division. So this isn't one anybody's going to take lightly at all.
How good of a job did the Patriots do covering the Bears receivers in this last game?
They did a nice job. I thought they did a really good job. I thought the key for them was they generated a lot of pressure, though, too. I was rushing coverage, but I did think they did a really nice job in the game. I thought they played a really good defense. Did you watch it? Did you think the same thing?
I think he had a person to throw to in a lot of plays.
Yeah. Well, they did a nice job. Credit to them, because those are good receivers.
I think multiple things can be true with the Bears and Caleb Williams. A lot of people, you hear this a lot when an offense is struggling or a quarterback is struggling. Well, why doesn't the offensive coordinator just scheme up some quick throws, some easy throws? And I think Waldron was doing a little bit of that, Mike, to your point. He just didn't always take the throw, or he would miss the throw. And then, of course, when you take 7, 8, or 9 sacks, or however many it was, like there's protection issues as well. There's lots of issues, but Caleb Williams is one of those issues. And as a Packers fan, I hope it continues, because I've also seen him get hot this year, and he can really make plays and be elusive and be all those things that Jeff Halfley just said he could be.
Yeah, but they even had the TV analyst, Daryl Johnson, the former Cowboys fullback, up there in the booth saying, he was questioning the technique they're teaching Cole Kmet. Like, why isn't this guy given a head juke before he does a simple down and out on third down? I mean, who's not catching this? Who's not looking at this stuff and correcting it?
Yeah.
And I mean, he all but had Shane Waldron fired by the third quarter. It's like, this is sloppy.
Yeah.
And he could see it. He could see it from the booth. And the closer, and then they had some great replays, or your jaw drops like, oh my God, he's right. This is sloppy. Now here's a drama though, that, the Packers traded away Preston Smith during the bye week, and the doors were closed here. These guys were out of the office. So today was the first chance that we had to talk to Jeff Halfley, defensive coordinator. Like, so what was this going on? I mean, Preston Smith goes to Pittsburgh the next day and says, yeah, listen, I'm not a 4-3 guy. I'm not a hand in the dirt guy, and I'm excited to be here in Pittsburgh. He didn't say anything bad. He said, it's a good system they got, but I'm a stand-up outside linebacker, and I'm excited to be here with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So what was that like for that last month when we couldn't talk to Preston Smith because he was never around, and apparently he was asking to be traded out of Green Bay?
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak of what happened behind closed doors, requesting a trade, not liking the system. I have a great relationship with Preston. I talked to him, after immediately, and I was happy to see him move on to a good place with a coach who I really respect. But that's a question for Preston. No, we had great conversations here, and I thought he did a really nice job. I think he's got a great opportunity now where he is. And that's really all I got for you. The guys here have been awesome. And I'm looking forward to, coaching some of these young guys and seeing where we can go with the vets that are on the team right now.
Yeah, I saw tweets. It sounds like Hafley sounds excited about everything, Mike. Mike Clemens is here, by the way. It sounds like he's amped to coach Brenton Cox and Aaron Mosby. Those are two players that he and a lot of members of the Packers coaching staff are really excited about.
I think the coaching staff is excited about those two young guys. I think they're still at the back of the line and special teams players. But, really, they're looking at Lucas Van Ness. And it's like, okay, it's go time for you, young man,
Yeah.
I mean, the spotlight is on him and Igbari, to pick up some of these snaps with Preston out of the way. And, oh, by the way, Rashawn Gary as well. So a dozen players on the injury list for the Packers headed into this one. Most of them just, limited. They're pretty healthy. Colby Wooden, the backup defensive lineman, he's got his shoulder, did not participate. He'll probably be out. But then Marshawn Lloyd, the third-round pick out of USC, who goes down with an ankle injury, week 2. And then last night they listed him now with a hamstring injury. Today LaFleur said, I don't know if it's quite a hamstring. We're having it looked at. Like, oh, what does that mean? So we asked Adam Stanovich, offensive coordinator, how excited are you guys about if and when you can get this speedy running back, Marshawn Lloyd, if he could be back on the active roster this week for Chicago?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can't wait to get him back in the fold. Obviously, with the bye week, you go back and kind of self-scout and watch all the old film that you had for the year. And the one game that he played, you just saw his explosive potential, his quickness, his receiving ability, very good player. So, he's working through some stuff and he's trying to get back as fast as he can. But at the same time, we just got to make sure we're smart with it and everything. But yeah, he's working, and I'm looking forward to getting him back very soon.
Mike, I love that story of Josh Jacobs saying that he drives to practice with Marshawn Lloyd in the car, keeping him engaged, keeping him locked in, even though he's missing time with this injury. Because I'm still worried about his ability to stay healthy. I mean, why wouldn't you be? He's had multiple injuries already, but I loved hearing that from Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, and I just think Josh Jacobs has grown so much into becoming a Packer in the 6 months he's been here, because he came in kind of a Raider,
Yep.
He really has. He's really adapted. I mean, he's made this transformation that this is low key, dude. This is Green Bay. This is not about, you. It's about team and everything. And I like the way he's done that. And then Adam Stanovich was asked about, hey, your offense overall, you're ranked near the top in terms of productivity and big plays, explosive plays. You're near the bottom when you get in the red zone and scoring touchdown. What's going on there?
For us, I think it's just staying out of negative plays. You look at the drives where we don't have penalties or just negative plays in general, and we're excellent in the red zone. But if we do have negative plays, we just got to make sure we overcome those. And that's been our Achilles heel this year as far as scoring, is having those negative plays down there that get us behind the sticks and really force us into field goal opportunities.
So is that just an execution thing, a focus thing? I think it might be a focus thing. When you have wide receivers jumping off sides before the snap, when you're bearing down in on the red zone, that's a focus thing. That's an execution thing, right, Mike?
Yeah, and the other thing too is in that game against the Lions, we talked about this. We were concerned about it, but they really missed Josh Myers and having Elton Jenkins back at his regular spot there at left guard. And every little thing counts, particularly against perhaps the best team in the NFC right now, the Detroit Lions, in terms of your run declaration. How are you going to run block this? How are you going to pass protect? Just the way you have your alignment, and you had Jordan Morgan in there, who, by the way, hurt his shoulder again yesterday in practice. Filling in at left guard. It looks like Josh Myers will be back this week over center, over the football. And, you'd like to see that happen when you get into this final run of 8 regular season games for the Packers and Bears and 49ers and Dolphins. And then you got to play that Vikings game at the end of December. So,
oh my, that's a long list of opponents, right, Mike? Well, I appreciate you. I know we'll connect with you to wrap up the week on Bill's show tomorrow. And then you guys head down to Chicago this weekend. We look forward to all your coverage. Thanks for the time.
you bet. Good stuff tomorrow on Bill's show after 1:20 on Xavier McKinney. Just the incredible next level of leadership that guy has been shown around here.
I heard Hafley's comment, and I continue to wonder why the Giants let him go. But one team's trash, I guess. Another man's treasure.
Yeah.
I'm not going to complain.
Yeah. Talk to you later, man.
Thanks, Mike. That's Mike Clemens on Twitter at Mike Clemens NFL. Appreciate his coverage, his time. We'll wrap up the week tomorrow for the final 3 segments of Bill's show with Mike, if you want a little more Mike before we go into the weekend. All right, Thorson and Heilprin coming up in a few minutes. Let's take our last break before we turn things over to them.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Wrapping up the Wisco Sports Show. Appreciate you listening tonight. Justin Garcia was excellent, wasn't he? Mike Clemens, outstanding as always. We'll reconnect with him as we wrap up Bill's show and the week tomorrow. Last couple segments. We'll get him at 1:20. Brad Biggs will join us, Chicago Tribune, talk about the Bears. Carmen Vitale, Fox Sports, and she does some stuff up in Chicago with Marquee and other Bears-related things. She'll be here tomorrow night at 5:30, so looking forward to connecting with her. You might know her. She does some Pack-A-Day stuff with Andy, too. So Carmen, first-time guest of the show. Thorson and Heilprin coming up in 3 minutes. Big night for the show. They're live at Monks and Sun Prairie, a great place to stop out, enjoy some food and drink. If you want to watch Thursday Night Football, another great divisional matchup tonight. The Eagles, who've turned their season around, and Jaden Daniels and the Commanders are the new team on the block. So looking forward to watching that. Monks and Sun Prairie, a great place to watch it. And you can hear Ebo and Zach talk about the game against Arizona coming up tomorrow and the game against Oregon coming up on Saturday. So tune in. They're coming up just a few minutes. I'll talk to you, the rest of you, tomorrow at 4. Never miss a Friday show.